You know what's scary? It's not losing, it's when the losing stops hurting. And that's the part that very few people talk about. Because when it doesn't hurt anymore, you don't have a reason to stop. You just keep going. When I first started gambling, every loss had a story that I told myself. The refs blew it, somebody shit the bed, I was due for a win, I had the right read, it just had a bad bounce or a play didn't go my way. There was always a reason. There was always a way to make it make sense, and for a while, that's probably what I used to cope after losing, and if there was a reason, then I still had this idea of control, and it probably wasn't really a problem, and if it was a bad loss, then of course it was a fluke, and maybe next time it wouldn't happen. Every excuse for a loss was just a justification for the next bet. Simple as that. Like, I think back to the games where I considered flukes, and it was stuff that was happening every weekend, like your team scores late and they just need a stop and they cover the spread, but the other team is in their 2-minute offense and they go right down the field and score a touchdown that isn't going to win them a game, but they're going to end up covering. And I would act like that was something that was one in a million when it literally happens multiple times a day on every Saturday and Sunday. It wasn't a miracle. It wasn't some buzzer beater or a lucky bounce. It wasn't a Hail Mary. It's just how games go. Teams go into 2-minute offense to try and score and win. And unfortunately, it led to a lot of backdoor losses. But again, I would justify that as that loss doesn't count. That was random that they just went on a 2-minute drill and scored when, again, it happens every week. College basketball was the absolute worst for that. Like, there's so many times where I had the under in a game and it's a 15-point lead. There's no shot of this team coming back, and they start fouling with like 3 minutes left. And all of a sudden, there's 25 free throws in the last 2 minutes, and then the over hits. Or the team's down by 10 and there's 30 seconds left and you have the spread at 8 and some random person that doesn't get any playing time decides to jack up a 3. And don't get me wrong, I totally get that guy doing it because I never really played on my college team and I would have definitely done that. But when you have money on the game, it just, like, ruins you. Again, that type of stuff happened every single night, and I refuse to admit it because if I did, then I'd have to kind of face the facts and realize, like, yes, that was a bad beat, but I'm not due for a win because of that. When I look back on that, I kind of make this connection to Frank from Shameless because I just started watching that show again, and I'm at the part where he needs to get a, new kidney or liver or whatever, and he's in, like, complete denial. He continues drinking. He's like, "Oh, it's just a cold, like, I'm fine, I'm fine. It's the Gallagher blood." And he was just in complete denial, and that's exactly what gambling was like for me. It was, yeah, I'm just gonna pretend like these losses didn't happen and continue to destroy my finances, destroy my life, and live to fight another day. Like, you actually feel completely numbed out, you feel dead on the inside. I remember staring at my phone after a game would end, like, hoping that the score app messed up and there was a late foul called and the team converted the 4th down or whatever the case may be, and I wouldn't even have any reaction. I'd just be sitting there emotionless. There was no anger, no reaction, no life, just like pure numbness. And then one of the things that I would often do is go right to Twitter and search, Packers +7 or whatever to see who else took it and see who else was bitching about the beat. And in a way that, and I've talked about this in other videos, but in a way that made me feel a little bit better, but it also fed my denial that, like, okay, I'm not the only person that just got backdoored on this. And so this has to be a fluke. If other people bet, then yeah, it was a fluke. So I can move on to the next bet. And then, like clockwork, I'd find another game right after. And it didn't have to be another NFL game. It might have been a random tennis match. And I'd load up on it. And the second that bet was placed, immediate relief. I felt better, like this weight was lifted off my chest, and, it didn't matter that I just lost. It didn't matter that I was broke. It didn't matter that most of my life was in shambles. It meant to me at the time a fresh start. Okay, this is where my big win happens, or that big win streak. Everything else in the past is forgotten, and then you start to feel alive again. I think every gambler probably goes through this phase, or at least every problem gambler, I should say, where You get to this stage in your gambling career and the pain just kind of disappears. The wins don't feel as good because you know that you're just going to continue betting and the losses stop hurting. And it doesn't even register as bad. Like it's just nothing. It's just part of the cycle. And you stop reacting and there's no yelling, there's no getting upset, there's no panic. You just sit there with a blank face stare on your phone screen or the TV waiting for something to change. And then you refresh the app, you redeposit and you repeat. And that's what gambling addiction really is. It's just this endless cycle. It's not always chaos. Sometimes it's total silence. It's just you staring off into the void because you've fried your emotional wiring so badly that the only thing that feels real anymore is actually hitting place bet. And that's when it gets really scary because you're not chasing wins anymore. You're chasing feelings. And even losing feels better than feeling nothing. You just want to feel anything. And you start in a weird way, like sadistically or whatever the word might be, craving that pain, and you convince yourself that this is normal and everybody does it and it's just a hobby and I have it under control. But the truth is, you're completely gone. You're numb and the silence has replaced the chaos. And looking back on it, that's when I knew I was in deep. Not the day I emptied my bank account, not when people found out, but the night I'd stare at my phone, waiting for the score to change, hoping the TV like delayed and the sound went out and there actually was a foul called and it was a three. You know what I mean? Like you're just hoping for anything. And I realized that I didn't care if it did happen. It was just on to the next one. If losing doesn't really feel bad anymore, then that's not peace. That's the disease talking because pain means that you still have something left to lose. And when there's no pain anymore, it's like you've just given up, but you can't get out of the cycle of not betting. If you've ever sat there numb, refreshing, reloading, redepositing, pretending everything is all bad luck, that's the point where you've got to start to wake up. Because once that pain goes away, gambling addiction runs the show. Drop a comment if you've been there. And if you're trying to stop, make sure you subscribe. You're not alone in this. I promise you.